Grade 7, quiz number 8. An excerpt from Invincible Microbe, Tuberculosis and the Never-Ending Search for a Cure by Jim Murphy. Paragraph 1. 500,000 years ago, a small band of our ancient human ancestors, now known as Homo erectus, traveled across western Turkey. One of them, a young male, had been sick for many weeks. He was tired and irritable, and his head ached terribly. For days he hadn't been able to eat much, and what he did eat, he soon vomited up. Still, he tried to keep up with the rest of his group, but as they entered a mountain forest, the pain in his head became unbearable, and he could no longer walk. Paragraph 2. There wasn't much anyone could do for him. They brought him water and tried to make him comfortable. No matter what they did, the pain in the boy's head continued until he was so sick he no longer recognized his companions. Finally, moaning in pain, he lay on the ground and fell into a deep sleep from which he never woke. Paragraph 3. His people never knew what killed him, but modern-day scientists do. When paleontologists studied a fragment of this boy's fossilized skull, they saw a series of tiny lesions, or scars, on the inside. The scars were identical to those made by a bacterium that causes a fatal disease of the brain. What scientists were looking at was the oldest physical evidence of tuberculosis, or TB, yet discovered. The origins of TB actually go back even further than this. Scientists now believe that TB is caused by microorganisms that lurk in the soil and water of Africa as much as 3 million years ago. By chance, some of our most ancient ancestors became infected with these TB germs and died from the disease. Later, between 20,000 and 35,000 years ago, something happened. The germs began to evolve. What emerged was a different and even more dangerous microorganism, which we call Mycobacterium tuberculosis. M. tuberculosis is a slender, elegantly curved rod so small that 25,000 of them laid end to end would measure only 1 inch long. They grew much more slowly than the other bacteria and are bound up in a fatty, wax-like protecting wrapping, which observed through a microscope, they look more harmless and beautiful than deadly. Paragraph 6. Yet M. tuberculosis is anything but harmless, mainly because these germs can be passed so easily from person to person. When individuals with these microorganisms in their lungs cough, sneeze, or simply talk, they spew millions of bacteria into the air in tiny droplets. These seemingly innocent germs can then hang in the air for several hours until someone breathes them in. Paragraph 7. Once inside a human body, the M. tuberculosis bacterium usually finds a comfortable home in the lungs. But these germs have the remarkable ability to establish themselves in other parts of the body as well. They can survive in and infect the large and small intestines, the lymph nodes, the skin, bones, and joints, the brain, the ears, the eyes, the inner ear. In fact, there is almost no organ or tissue in the human body that is immune to this germ. Paragraph 8. Once situated, the TB germ begins to multiply. Over the course of days, hundreds of thousands and then millions of them will disappear and begin to eat into the organ, bone, or tissue. In the case of tuberculosis of the spine, this process can take many years, during which time the backbones collapse and a painful hunchback develops. Sometimes the advance of TB is much less predictable. A person with M. tuberculosis in his or her lungs might die in a few days or weeks, or the illness might linger for months, even years. It can also disappear suddenly, only to return a few years later. Even today, scientists have no idea why TB is so unpredictable, but they do know that whenever TB of the lungs is active, that is when the bacteria are multiplying, each cough can send millions upon millions of M. tuberculosis into the air and infect anyone who comes near. Directions. Answer the following questions relating to the passage titled Excerpt from Invincible Microbe, Tuberculosis and the Never-Ending Search for a Cure. 1. Which detail from the text best supports the author's claim that tuberculosis is an unpredictable disease? A. M. tuberculosis is a slender, elegantly curved rod so small that 25,000 of them laid end to end would measure only 1 inch long. Paragraph 5. B. When paleontologists studied a fragment of the boy's fossilized skull, they saw a series of tiny lesions or scars on the inside. Paragraph 3. C. A person with M. tuberculosis in his or her lungs might die in a few days or weeks, or the illness might linger for months, even years. Paragraph 8. D. In the case of tuberculosis of the spine, this process can take many years, during which time the backbones collapse and a painful hunchback develops. Paragraph 8. Number 2. Reread these lines from paragraph 4. Later, between 20,000 and 35,000 years ago, something happened. The germs began to evolve. What does the word evolve most closely mean as it is used in paragraph 4? A. Die. B. Disappear. C. Multiply. D. Change. Number 3. Which central idea of the article is most supported by paragraph 6? A. M. tuberculosis is hard to prevent or control. B. M. tuberculosis can have a devastating effect on its victims. C. M. tuberculosis has both beautiful and harmful characteristics. D. M. tuberculosis is a bacterium with a very complex and fascinating structure. 4. Which of the following statements can best be supported with sufficient evidence from the text? A. Many ancient humans died from tuberculosis, which was a mysterious disease at the time, but is now fully understood by today's researchers and scientists. B. By studying fossilized skulls and their fragments, today's scientists are beginning to understand what life was like for early man. C. Many diseases evolve over time, which makes them all difficult to treat. D. Fossils have helped scientists learn more about tuberculosis, a highly contagious and complicated bacterium. Number 5. Which of the following details should be included in a summary of the text? A. Finally moaning in pain, he lay on the ground and fell into a deep sleep, from which he never woke. Paragraph 2. B. These germs can be passed so easily from person to person. Paragraph 6. C. They grow much more slowly than other bacteria. Paragraph 5. D. The backbones collapse and a painful hunchback develops. Paragraph 8. Number 6. How do paragraphs 1 and 2 contribute to the text's central idea? Use at least 2 details from the text to support your response.